Well, how are we today? 2005 Ford F-150 5.4 liter 3-valve. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Well, not really that long. It's been a while since I've done one on YouTube. This one, customer states, needs timing components. Well, they got a quote for that. In reality, these things need an oil pump and all the timing components, because after it lost oil pressure, hammered all the timing components out. However, this one has 221,000 miles on it. We need to see if there's enough left of the engine to make it worth putting an oil pump in. So let's get into it and I'll show you how. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the fire steering reservoir loose. So that bolt, there's 2 bolts here, 1 bolt there. Take those 2 out, just loosen that one because that one has a notch in it. You can slide it off to the side, so that's loose. There's a 10 millimeter bolt, 10 millimeter headed bolt back there that we need to take out so we can remove the air intake tube. Most of this stuff we're going to want to do with hand wrenches. On a vehicle with this many miles, you'll start snapping bolts and stuff pretty darn quick on these. That one's out. We go ahead and pop this out. Just snaps in there. Go ahead and set this on the back. So my primary goal here is to remove the valve covers and assess the condition of the cam bearings and things of that nature. It appears that at some point someone has left the oil cap off, and this thing's been ran and slinging oil, and or it has actually chewed a hole in the valve cover, which I've seen both. So we're going to do a little investigating on where all of this oil is coming from over here before we get too far into our diagnostic process. We just want to check everything as we go. Well, after doing a little further investigating here in this area, I can you can see that clean trail where the oil's been cleaning the valve cover there. So upon doing a little investigation, we have this oil cap, O-ring's good. Just a little extension adapter / adapter tube. For some reason, there's a hole in it right there. There shouldn't be a hole in that. It should look like that side right there. I've never seen one with a hole in it. So that's kind of curious to me. Interesting. That's why I try to look at those things. So I'm going to explain to you the oil flow on one of these engines. Y'all can argue with me if you want. I don't care. You can go look up the charts. So, oil pump is driven off the front of the crankshaft. The oil flows up to the left-hand cylinder head. Now, this is on my right-hand side, but this is the left-hand cylinder head. Always look at it like you're sitting in the vehicle. So, left-hand side. This is the left-hand cylinder head. Left-hand cylinder head gets oil first, flows back, and then over to the other side via your oil passages. So the right side is the most starved for oil. That's where I always start. And if the right side looks good, you can usually assume that the left side is good unless the oil passage was blocked to this camshaft in particular, but it's very rare. So we will go ahead and remove the right-hand valve cover. We have to get the PCM out of there and a couple other things, and we can get the valve cover out and inspect those cam journals. This is another thing why I'd like to videotape the things that I do. See that zip tie that's there? I'm assuming somebody broke the lock on the PCM connector at some point. They use that zip tie to secure it. Documenting those things can prove to the customer that didn't happen before. It is a way that'll work to secure that, but you just want to kind of dot your I's and cross your T's sometimes. So those are things to keep an eye out for and make a video of, take pictures of, what have you. It's not the end of the world. At least they put something on there to secure it, but come on, come out of there. And now you can see, it doesn't release very well, or it releases immediately. The locking tab has been compromised on it, so again, not a huge surprise there. That one's not, doesn't lock very well either, nor does that one. That's a pretty common issue on these as they get older and they've been apart a couple of times. The little retainer tab on that PCM clip doesn't engage as crisply as it used to. I've seen guys take one long zip tie and wrap around the whole PCM across all 3 connectors to try to hold them in there and seat them. Obviously, when you're getting a truck with this many miles on it, an entire wire harness, A, isn't worth it, and B, probably isn't available anyway. And if you get one out of a junkyard, they're all cut up. All right, so as you can see, I removed the battery over here on this side. There's not a lot to see there, just a couple of battery clamps and your hold down. We are going to go ahead and see if we can get the bolts out of the PCM. That's why I don't use impact, because you can gall that in pretty fast with an impact. This cordless ratchet is relatively low torque. I think you're 20 foot-pounds maybe. Unless it's already half rusted through, it doesn't have enough power to snap a 6mm bolt off. Drop that one. We put the PCM bracket in the battery tray. Now, for many, this is going to look like a little bit of an intimidating mess when you can't really still see the valve cover, but as we chip away and we work our way down to it, we'll get there. It doesn't take too long. Shop manual is going to say that you need to discharge the air conditioning and remove this fitting from your receiver dryer. You can get the valve cover out without having to do that. In this case, that's what I'll do. In some cases, I do not. It just depends on how extensive we are getting into the repair on this vehicle. So we will leave that fitting intact for now. If we're pulling the engine or something like that, then you absolutely have to take it off. You don't have the width and the room to get it out of there, but we can get the valve cover out. Okay, next order of business here is your PCV. Well, I shouldn't call it your PCV, your breather line. Off that, you have to take that little green tab, pull it back, and then over. You can actually see, if I can get you in there, there's a little hook on the end of that. So that keeps it from wanting to just go directly over. Now on the valve cover, many times, these are stuck. And in this case, it is stuck. So, we'll set you there. Now we don't have to worry about the heater hose yet. We can go ahead and just fold that over, get it out of the way. But this line, chances are it's going to leave the plastic fitting, plastic connector behind to get it off here. We don't want to get too rowdy with it because you will break it, but it's going to come apart hard. Yeah, that one's gonna come apart real hard. This is a higher mileage Midwest vehicle, so none of these things surprise me. I've seen them all before. It just takes a little bit more time to get them all apart. These are the things that you have to, when I'm doing an estimate, I'm already going to include time for this. Whether that gets me the job or not, I always ask the customer how many miles are on it, etc., etc. So you can plan for these things. I'd rather do that than have them come in and be like, oh yeah, it took me 3 extra hours to get this apart because of how rusty it is. So and one thing can take a while, but if we're getting into some of these applications now, as these vehicles get older, this one's getting to be close to 20 years old, I mean, and parts are becoming very limited in some applications for these, so there we go. And that's exactly what I meant. The half that connector was going to stay there. So what happens is it's still good. You can still put it back together. Just don't want to lose this O-ring right here, but it's still pretty stuck on there. We'll just oil it up good. Instead of releasing from this side like this one did, where it just released from this green ring in here, it released from these little locking ears that are on either side. So that's why you gotta work it a little bit back and forth, because there's no actual way to release those. They're not release tabs. But as long as you don't get too rowdy with it, it will pop off there and it will snap back on. So patience, it's a virtue. So now we got that out of the way. This vacuum line here isn't gonna be in our way at the moment. It kind of can be a pain. So we can go through, pull your injector connectors and your coil connectors. So coil connectors, it's just a tab on the back. On this side, they're going to face toward the back. Injector connectors, push down a little bit. Try to release your tab if it doesn't want to pull up right away. Give it a little wiggle. Otherwise, we're going to take a hook tool. I will show you here. A hook tool like this. We're going to go inside the back of the connector. Let me see if I can show you this on this front one here. If you watch carefully, you're going to see that connector tab release on the top end here. And then I pull on that with my, trying to hold on to the camera here. Bink. Pop that off. So what happens is you get enough dirt and grit in the back underneath there that if you can just keep pushing on that tab with your thumb or your finger, you're just going to snap the end of it off and it'll never release on the far end. So you get that pick underneath there and pop that thing up. So I'll get the rest of those disconnected. We'll kind of move that harness out of the way. You can see that the rust has expanded that retainer enough that it's broke it off. Not a big deal, but we'll get the rest of those connectors disconnected. Then we'll start working on valve cover bolts. Okay, so I went and put the oil filler cap on. You don't need to worry about the neck piece, but just to close the hole in the valve cover. Now I like to take a blowgun with a nice long nozzle on it, particularly around the coils and the seam in the valve cover on the top side here. You get a lot of dirt trapped in there. And if you go ahead and pull those out, you're gonna get a lot of dirt intrusion into the engine. So we like to get that all cleaned out. It's not from the dust. There isn't really any dust there. Most of it's pretty damp, pretty heavy stuff. But use some compressed air. I don't recommend using a pressure washer because you're gonna get a lot of water intrusion and a lot of the stuff that gets down below the boots on the spark plug coils and things like that. So a little compressed air, blow that out, clean it out real good, and kind of give yourself a good visual inspection down there. If you need to hit it again, do so. I like to, you can do this before as well if you want. I like to get a couple of the components out of the way so I got a little bit more room to get in there and really get it cleaned out good. So next step is coil bolts. Coil bolt removal, relatively long extension. I think this is gonna be like a 10-inch extension, somewhere 12-inch extension ish. And 7mm swivel socket. Don't be trying to get all cheap and go buy a cheap one. These bolts usually aren't that tight. No power tools on these things. You will gall them, strip them, or snap them off because they're just tiny little fuckers. So if they are stuck, you will snap them off really easy. That's all the bigger they are, so chuck them in on top of your PCM bracket. Makes a nice little tray sitting there in the battery tray. Don't mind me, I'm a little stuffy. Shit, still gotta get done either way, so. That one. You can do this with a regular socket if you really want to, but at some point I have company. What the hell? I just see watermelons come rolling across my floor. I'll bring you back. All right, well, now if we could look down here and you look right up, right in there, you gotta take the bolt out that holds the transmission dipstick tube to the cylinder head. It's a big old bolt. So we get that out of there. And then we can go back up top, finish taking out the rest of the valve cover bolts. Pull that valve cover out of there. Okay, for valve cover removal, really long 1/4-inch extension, 8mm swivel socket. These are actually the Pittsburgh ones from Harbor Freight. I've beat the hell out of the end of it with a hammer, using it as a punch, but it works. And then you're going to need a deep well with like the 2-inch extension on it. The 3-inch is going to be too long because the very rear center valve cover bolt, if you have the, I believe it's 14-bolt valve cover, if you have the one that's missing every other bolt, you won't have that one in the back. So early models have the 14-bolt cover. The later models have, I believe it's a 9-bolt cover. Don't quote me on that, but. So we got all the bolts removed. I shouldn't say removed. We got all the bolts loosened up. They don't all come out. None of them usually come out. If you get one stuck on a socket and you got to jerk it out of there to get it out of there, that's fine. But and you can see the valve covers out of the way. So we got to tuck this harness back here. The way this GoPro just randomly powers off is really starting to, any given point, it just decides, nope, not today. We're not going to do it today, it says. So I like to tuck this valve cover, or this wire harness, over here, kind of behind your Schrader valve for the AC. the idea is we want to be able to come up through here with the valve cover and get around this elbow. They could have definitely done things a little bit different there in their design and engineering, but that's pretty much every manufacturer, let's face it. So the next step is to grab a prying utensil. You don't need one that long. Okay, you can use one this long even, it doesn't matter. Somewhere in between. And pop the valve cover loose. So somebody's been into the valve covers on this previously. I can tell you because I see blue valve cover gasket. So I'm going to need both hands for this. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle. I'm going to try to find you a good vantage point to see what I'm doing here. Maybe we'll put you right there. Your biggest issue is going to be your VCT solenoid and your AC line. You have to get clear of both of those. So straight up, and then you want to come back toward the intake side, and then you're in your back here. You gotta lift that up and come forward to clear your cam journals. Oh, come on. It'll clear it. It just doesn't like to, with that harness, depending on where that harness is at, it has to go over the top of the valve cover, but also down behind the valve cover. So all things to consider here. We may have to remove that line, that hose, just to make ourselves a little bit more clearance here. We try not to, but once we get up on top of the cam journal there, and this is why it's so important to make sure that you're clearing all that stuff out with compressed air. Oh boy. I can already see some not so happy signs down here. So I have not had this engine running because the customer added several quarts of Lucas oil treatment to it, and it has no oil pressure, so we want to get in here and see what's going on. But I can tell you just from my preliminary viewing here, it doesn't look pretty. Let's see if we can get this out of here. Okay, well, that was a little bit more frustrating than I planned, but we got it out of there. Okay, I'm gonna go through some of my initial concerns here. Oh, somebody's definitely been all the way into this thing at one point, because it's got blue front covers, gaskets as well. That looks different than VCTs that I've seen before. Control solenoids. I have some around here to compare. But that doesn't look great. So my initial concern right out of the gate is you can tell this chain has been hitting something steel. You can just see how rough it is. You can see all the little filings on my finger. That's not good. Something has come apart in here. In fact, I think I see part of it. Okay, well, the other thing I want to look at is I want to look at my lash adjusters, my roller followers, make sure they're all in place. Kind of run your fingers down them. Just see if anybody's flopping around down there. And it appears that all those are in good shape. But we definitely have some type of major failure in the timing components. Oh yeah, look at that. And this thing's eating metal. It ain't good. We're gonna have to get into further diagnostics on this. Definitely gonna have to talk to the customer because something's come apart on this. This could very well need an engine. But that is the basics on how you get in here. Now, normally I would pull the bearing caps off on this. We are beyond that point right now. Normally I would pull the bearing caps off on this thing and we would go and see how scored those are. We need to figure out what all that's about. And then we can further assess from there. That's a bigger problem than bearing caps at this point. So if you guys want to know more, just ask, like and subscribe, comment, share it out if you know anybody that you'd think would like it. Grab a membership. They're $5 a month, 10 or 25, whatever you'd like to do. It certainly helps us out on the channel and it gives us the ability to do more and more things for you guys. I'll bring you back for part 2 because this one's going to get pretty involved. You guys have a great day.